Does your elected officials seem to be constantly putting party over people? My name is Bobby Dodge, and I want to be the first member of Congress from the America Party to represent the middle 80% of Americans who are sick of what the two parties have done. Mark Green has decided to abruptly resign from his seat for greener pastures. And we're going to have a special election in Tennessee's 7th Congressional District on December the 2nd. I want to go back and talk about why we have two parties. When America was starting, George Washington warned that parties could split people and cause a lot of fights. Sound familiar? But soon, people with different ideas grouped together to get more power. I know several people who are going back and watching the old Survivor episodes on Paramount+. In the first season, it only took a couple episodes until Richard figured out the way to win was by forming alliances. In elections, the two major parties win almost everything because they have the most money, the most publicity, and they make the rules, making it hard for new parties to join. This system keeps things simple, but it forces everyone to pick sides. Even if they don't really agree with what their team is doing, you end up picking a side that you think is least bad, and that is no way to govern. In the early 1800s, the two dominant parties were the Democrats and the Whigs. Not those Whigs, these Whigs. Northern Democrats and Whigs joined together to start an anti-slavery party, and Abraham Lincoln was elected the first president of this newly formed Republican Party in 1860. I believe we're in a position to do the same thing now and have a major party shift. We have one party who won a fairly large majority, but people still overwhelmingly believe that we are on the wrong track. And we have another party who just seems to be tripping over themselves to take the most radical positions. We need a party who will represent the middle 80% of people and bring some sanity back to government. Hulk Hogan just passed away a couple of days ago, and growing up, I loved Hulk Hogan and the WWF. I had WrestleMania pay-per-view birthday parties nearly every year. Hulk had many bitter rivalries throughout the years, but as I got older, I started to figure out that it was all play acting, something they call kayfabe, which is a code word for fake. They would play a character, shout trash talk, and then go backstage and be best friends. It took me a little later in life to realize that the two parties are participating in the same kind of kayfabe. They will get on TV, they will trash talk each other, call each other racist, baby killer, Nazi, you name it, and then go behind closed doors and yuck it up, all at our expense. They will purposefully not solve problems because it allows them to argue and fundraise on those problems. If they can keep you stirred up, they can keep getting elected. This last year, when the Department of Government Efficiency started finding ridiculous uses of taxpayer money, a few members started to talk a big game at first, and then they collectively did very little to codify real cuts into law. When the so-called fiscal hawk Republicans raised the debt ceiling by $5 trillion for a big, beautiful bill, that's roughly $1,000 from every American taxpayer. Every year. Indefinitely. Just to pay the interest on the new debt they're racking up for the next 2 years. Have you ever looked around and said, why are things so expensive now? It's because the value of the dollar has gone down because of this type of spending. The United States government has decreased your standard of living. Your government has made you poorer. Republicans are just as guilty as Democrats, and in fact, you could argue they might be worse. It was already bad pre-COVID, but what happened during COVID really turned things up to 11.
What we do is if we need that extra push over the cliff, you know what we do?
Put it up to 11.
11, exactly.
During COVID, we started spending at World War II levels, and then we just didn't stop. We didn't send troops and bombs and planes all over the world to liberate it. The government just found a big pot of gold and wanted to spread it out and buy themselves some personal popularity. We need to stop thinking about every debate in terms of R versus D. We should be thinking about them in terms of P versus G, people versus the government. We have to remember that all of this monstrous government spending is going to someone. It's not a coincidence that 5 of the top 7 richest counties in America are DC suburbs. Of course, Congress benefits from this as well. This is such an open secret that you can buy an ETF trading on Nancy Pelosi's portfolio. Here's a chart of the portfolios of many members of Congress versus the S&P for 2023. Nancy's return was all the way down in 9th place, but would you take a look at who was number 2? Why, that's our very own Mark Green, who resigned abruptly because he got an exciting opportunity in the private sector that he couldn't pass up. That's why we're having this special election. It must have been a really good opportunity to pass up making 122% year over year. This is all to say that the Uniparty is alive and well. Elon Musk asked his 223 million followers if it was time for a new political party, and by a factor of 2 to 1, people said yes. The next day he filed for the American Party. This will be a party that represents the middle 80% of people. I want to be a part of this movement and this potential for party realignment. Now, like I've said before, the two parties like their power structure, and the America Party is not yet recognized in Tennessee. For the America Party to be part of this special election, it would take gathering 80, 90,000 signatures in the next couple of weeks. That's far more than the number of votes required to win this election. So unless Elon himself wants to fund a massive statewide signature campaign, I will register for this election as an independent, and if elected, I will change my party to the America Party at first opportunity. I don't know Elon Musk. I don't have millions of dollars. You've never heard of me, and you're looking at my whole campaign staff. I'm a small business owner and a dad who wants to give the next generation the chances that his generation had. I will post videos on my YouTube and X accounts at the mid-80s several times a week, talking about the issues that I think the middle 80% of people can agree on. So like or follow if that's something that interests you. With the rest of my time, I will be calling on as many of my 7th District neighbors as possible. With a viable third party and a December special election, we could possibly win this race with as few as 30,000 votes. Let's send a message to the Uniparty, who have a collective 22% approval rating, that it's time for a change. Plus, if you don't like what I'm doing, there will be another election only 11 months later, so you have very little to lose. If you're registered in the 7th Congressional District, email me your name, your zip code, and your phone number to hello@bobbydodge.com, and I will call you back personally and give you the number to my iPhone. I won't ask you for money. I won't put you on some campaign spam list. I just want to hear from you and hear the issues that are most important to you and represent that in the United States Congress. I look forward to hearing from as many of you as possible these next 4 months. If you live outside of the 7th Congressional District, go ahead and leave a comment here, and I'll try to respond. Just remember, people, not party.